Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Robert Hoagland? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll start with the background in this case. I'll move to the timeline of the disappearance, then offer my analysis. Robert Hoagland was born in 1963 and lived in Newtown, Connecticut. In his early 20s, he met a woman named Lori at a culinary school. The couple married and would go on to have 3 sons. Robert and Lori found jobs in their field, but eventually Robert wanted a change. In 2001, he studied to become a real estate appraiser. In 2012, Robert started working part-time as a law clerk at a firm in Bridgeport, Connecticut, owned by one of his friends. By this time, Robert's son Max had run into some problems with substance use and was arrested for shoplifting. In early 2013, he would be treated in a rehabilitation facility. Lori went with a friend on a vacation to Turkey in 2013. When she was away, she communicated with Robert via email. Before she returned, 2 of the family's laptop computers were stolen. Robert had hidden the computers in Lori's Volkswagen Golf. Max had taken the Volkswagen to an abandoned building in Bridgeport, where he was stripping metal out to sell for drugs. Max said that he found the computers in the car and hid them in the building so they wouldn't get stolen while he was there. When he returned to the place where he had hid them, they were gone. Max believed that 2 men who he knew had stolen the computers. Robert suspected that Max had stolen the computers in order to get money for drugs. Robert sent Lori an email saying he was sorry for permitting it to happen. Robert and Max returned to the abandoned building in Bridgeport and confronted the 2 men about the stolen computers. The men denied any involvement. Robert withdrew $600 from one of the family's bank accounts on July 25, 2013, which was 4 days before Lori was going to return from Turkey. During the evening on July 27, Robert and Lori talked on the phone. They confirmed the plan for Robert to pick Lori up from JFK Airport in New York City on July 29. Now moving to the timeline of the disappearance. Early the next morning, July 28, Robert drove his wife's Volkswagen Golf to a local bakery where he purchased bagels. He then drove her vehicle to a mobile gas station on Churchill Road and purchased fuel. At 6:45 a.m., surveillance video captured him at the gas station buying a map of the eastern United States. Robert departed the gas station and returned to his residence. He had breakfast with his son Max. According to Max, Robert paid some bills and played Scrabble online. Sometime around 10 or 11 a.m., Robert walked outside to mow the lawn. As Robert was mowing the lawn, Max approached him, said he was leaving, and would return in a few hours. He requested the keys for the Volkswagen, which Robert gave him. Max drove away in that vehicle. A neighbor would later tell the authorities that he witnessed Robert and Max talking on the lawn, which corroborates the story that Max supplied. The next day, July 29, Lori arrived at JFK Airport at about 4 p.m. She attempted to reach Robert on his cell phone and home phone, but there was no answer. She assumed that Robert had let his phone battery die, which is something that he did with regularity. After waiting for 2 hours, she took a taxi to the home of her stepsister instead of returning to her house. Lori found out that Robert did not show up to work that morning and did not answer phone calls from his boss. At 7:30 p.m., Lori called the police and reported him missing. Not long after this, the police in Bridgeport notified Lori that Max had been arrested the night before and charged with 3rd-degree criminal trespass. Max was arrested near the same abandoned industrial building where Robert had met the 2 men who Max accused of taking the laptop computers. Max told the police that he was there to purchase drugs, but he had his mother's permission to take her vehicle. Lori told the police that Max did not have her permission. Max would eventually plead guilty to the criminal trespass charge. Lori arrived at home on July 30 to discover that Robert was still not there. There were a few curious items Lori and the police discovered at the house. Robert's Mini Cooper was parked in the driveway. His passport, blood pressure medication, and his cell phone were in the house. His dirty clothes were in the laundry. The lawnmower had not been returned to where it was typically stored, and Robert's sneakers were next to it. In addition, 2 pairs of Robert's loafers were in the house, including 1 pair that he wore to the gas station. Lori was able to make entry into Robert's safe, where she found thousands of dollars that he normally kept there. None of the money was missing. About a week later, Lori found additional items belonging to Robert under a doll on a chair in their bedroom, specifically his car keys and his wallet. The police talked to the 2 men who were accused of taking the laptop computers, but they couldn't find any connection to Robert's disappearance. On Robert's work computer, the police found a number of searches for an address in Rhode Island, but this clue did not lead anywhere. When they searched Robert's computer at his house, they found that he had downloaded a program designed to delete search records. He did this within a month before disappearing. The police had no idea where Robert was. They didn't know what happened to him. A number of people reported seeing Robert in various places after his disappearance, like in Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, and Los Angeles, but no sighting has ever been confirmed. Now moving to my analysis. There are 3 major theories in the case of Robert Hoagland. Let's take a look at the factors that support and refute the major theories. Theory number 1 is that Robert ran away to start a new life. There are a few items that support this theory. Robert's relationship with his wife was not always good. At one point, they were separated for 2 years. In 1994, Robert and Lori moved to California. He had a tough time finding a job, but eventually found work as a chef at a country club. He was fired, but he did not tell his wife. Instead, he disappeared for 3 weeks. He was easily found due to his credit card use. He said that he was scared and he was ashamed that he couldn't earn money. In the time leading up to his disappearance in 2013, Robert was under stress due to his son's drug use. Max had recently moved back in the family home, and there were concerns about his behavior. About a week before Robert disappeared, he told a friend that he was unhappy with his job and was thinking about quitting. Within a month of the disappearance, Robert downloaded software to delete his search history. Robert withdrew $600 a few days before disappearing, and the day he disappeared, he purchased a map of the eastern United States. Looking at the evidence against this theory, Robert was committed to his 3 sons. He spent a lot of time with them. He left items behind that would have been useful when starting a new life, like thousands of dollars in cash, his passport, cell phone, his medication, and shoes that he frequently wore. It's very hard to start a new life without comfortable shoes, as this is often a walking-intensive pursuit. Theory number 2 is that Robert was the victim of a crime. This is supported by a few items: the confrontation that Robert had with those associates of his son, and generally being pulled into the world of drug-related criminal activity. It's a dangerous business. Robert's vehicle was found in his driveway, and Max had Lori's vehicle. How did Robert leave the area, especially without his comfortable shoes? The fact that Robert mowed the lawn makes it seem like he wasn't preparing to leave. Grass cutting would not normally be on the starting a new life checklist. Looking at the factors that contradict this theory, no evidence of a crime has been found, no blood, no signs of a struggle, his body was never found, no witnesses to a crime, no video of a crime, and nothing was stolen. Theory number 3 is that Robert traveled somewhere and brought an end to his own life. Some of the same evidence that supports theory number 1 also supports theory number 3. For example, being unhappy with his job, being under stress caused by his son's drug use, deleting his internet search history, and his prior brief disappearance in 1994. This theory explains why Robert left behind items that would have helped him to start a new life. It explains why he didn't take his medication with him, because he would not have needed it, and why there was no indication that any crime had occurred. Perhaps purchasing the map was unrelated to his disappearance. He was interested in going on a trip to the Appalachian Trail with his son Max. Maybe he bought the map for that purpose. One friend of Robert said that Robert had many paper maps stored in his vehicle. he was a voracious consumer of paper maps. Maybe the stress on Robert was just way too much and he wanted to run away, but he knew that he would get caught. He had committed much of his life to the well-being of his sons, and seeing Max go down such a destructive path was something he just couldn't take. Robert made his way to some remote area and made his exit. When considering the evidence, how would I rank these theories as far as probability? I would say that theory number 3 is the most likely. Robert did not want to be around anymore. Then I would move to theory number 1. He ran away to start a new life. Then theory number 2. He was murdered by unknown assailants who left behind absolutely no evidence of a crime. One of the difficult elements of this case is how Robert was committed to his family, yet appears to have disappeared voluntarily, regardless of what he did afterward. Just because somebody is loving toward their family doesn't mean that they can't get depressed, frustrated, or despondent. A high degree of commitment to one's family is normally thought of as preventing any desire to run away, but for some people, it can actually facilitate that behavior. They become so invested in helping their family members that if they fail to do so, they feel a tremendous amount of shame. Disappointment can be a powerful motivator. Sometimes people just get overwhelmed and feel as though they are out of options. Those are my thoughts on the case of Robert Hoagland. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.